Today's segment of Sound Balming is brought to you by Jimmy and Mary's Authentic Body Care. I cannot express to you how much we love their products. Although we use them all year, as the weather gets colder, we need these products even more. The dreaded drop in temperature, the dryness, the itchiness, and the unnecessary flakiness is inevitable. Shea butter from Jimmy and Mary's Authentic Body Care is the only thing that works for my skin and hair needs. Not only do these products cure my dry skin, the whipped butter goes on smoothly and doesn't leave that uncomfortably thick, sticky residue. Bonus? It smells absolutely amazing. There are so many different scents to choose from too. Not only do they carry skincare products, there are products for authentic living, face, shower, hair and beard, spritzers and perfumes, and bath products. Let me tell you, we cannot even keep the stuff in the studio. The entire production team as well as all our children use Jimmy and Mary's product. Jimmy and Mary's take pride in creating quality, handcrafted products from simple ingredients for the entire family. Their products are made for all skin types and are 100% handmade, 100% vegan, and 100% cruelty-free. Skincare is important. Moisture is key, and keeping our skin and hair hydrated is essential. I cannot emphasize how much we trust Jimmy and Mary's for all of our skincare needs. Hurry on up to jimmyandmarys.com and check out their products. Did I mention service is fast and efficient too? Don't forget to mention that you heard about Jimmy and Mary's Authentic Skincare on Sound Balming. Use the discount code SOUNDBALM20 to get 15% off. That's SOUNDBALM20 for 15% off at Jimmy and Mary's Authentic Skincare.
Hey everybody, welcome to Sound Bombing. I created this show for people who want to experience a radical, life-changing journey through the sounds of my diverse guests. I hope that each sound you hear on this show will strengthen your faith, encourage your dreams, and challenge you to awaken the greatness within you.
Drop the bombs. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We come to drop the bomb. Drop the bomb.
This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
Lamar Darnell Shields.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever the time of the day it is, you're here with me. I am your host of Sound Bombing. My name is Dr. Lamar Darnell Shields, and welcome to my show. I am the creator of Sound Bombing, and my goal with this show is to introduce you to people with ideas that will help you unlock your full potential. Like my next guest, Dr. Tessa R. Sutton. Dr. Sutton is the Assistant Superintendent of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion at the South Bend School Corporation. She has served as a teacher and building and district level administrator. Tessa leads the Thought Leadership Conference, which is bringing business, education, and community leaders to one place to build a connected culture. She is also the president of Intercultural Relations Group and a certified diversity executive. Tessa serves on the City of Elkhart Municipal International Sister Cities Association Board. She holds a Master of Science degree in Education from Indiana University and a Master's of Arts degree in Intercultural Relations from the University of the Pacific. In conjunction with Intercultural Communications Institute, she received her Ph.D. in Education Leadership from Indiana State University, and we're excited about all that. But the most exciting part is she is with me in the building. Tessa, thanks for joining me in the Sound Bombing community. How are you doing today?
I am fabulous, and I'm really thrilled and honored to be here today.
Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
My listeners know that I am like the DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility guy. You all know I love that. I love having these conversations. But Tessa, before we get started, I just want to take a couple of breaths because I want to bring this energy into the space. Is that okay with you? All right, so we're going to start with our deep breathing. And I like to create this energy because virtually sometimes kind of hard to feel one another, but I'm excited about what you are doing. And I'm excited about what our listeners are going to get out of this. So we're just going to take a couple of breaths. And we always start with we do our deep inhalation. Inhale. Exhale. We let it out one more time. Inhale. Exhale. And we let it out. And that is called the breath of life. Well, yes. Tessa, listen, you know, like I know, there's a lot going on in the world when we're talking about diversity, inclusion, accessibility. But before we dive into that conversation, let my listeners know where you're calling in from, and let's just do a mental health check. How are you doing?
I'm dialing in from South Bend, Indiana, in the Hoosier State.
Hoosier State.
Yes. And how am I doing? I have to check on that every morning because I believe that how am I doing? I was just having a conversation about some of the significant work the heavy lift we have around equity, even here in this particular community and in this district. And I said, I get to be a part of that change. And it's not easy work, it's hard work. And so I often have to check in and say, take care of myself as we take care of others. But I'm here and I'm thriving.
So I want to go a little deeper with that question. I want to quote my brother, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He said this, Tessa, he says, one day we will learn that the heart can never be totally right if the head is totally wrong. Only through the bringing together of head and heart, intelligence, and goodness shall man and woman and all people rise to a fulfillment of their true nature. If this is true, my question to you, Tessa, is where is your head and where is your heart today as you, Dr. Tessa Sutton, is challenged with the work of leading your school district and basically your area around this conversation of equity? So where is your head and where is your heart?
That's really a great question. My head is building the systems and creating the structures needed to sustain change. And so that takes a significant and heavy lift when you're trying to have people address systemic issues that have been in place for inequities that have been in place for such a long time. So my head is in the systems. My heart is in the place of, the passion of wanting to get this done, but nothing gets done without people. And this is the human side of business. And it takes time to ask a fish to swim a different way. That's a pretty tough and tall order, but the head and the heart, you have to use both in order to achieve this. But I must say, we cannot wait for people to feel like they want to change. We have to help them to do it. I always liken that to if we waited for people to feel like Black people, just using Black people, for example, to have the right to vote, I'm not sure if we'd be voting if there was not a law or some supports or some sort of structures that change for it to happen. So that's where my heart and head are right now.
Great comment. So before I move on forward, because we know one another, and I want to make sure my audience know, would you prefer Dr. Sutton or would you prefer me calling you Tessa?
It doesn't matter to me.
There we go. So sometime I'll go back and forth. So some people are like, brother, this sister has her Ph.D. How you disrespecting her, but they don't know that we know one another. But I'm gonna be respectful because I know how hard. I tell people say, well, I'm going to call you Dr. Shields. I'm going to listen. All that means is
that's right.
My student loans are deeper than yours. I'm gonna keep it moving, sister. So Dr. Sutton, so let's get, so I have a lot of listeners all over the country, and my show just does not just focus on education. It really focuses on, people who have ideas to help you unlock your full potential. And that's why you're here. But one of my listeners sent in this statement, and I want you to respond to it as we have this deep conversation. She said, last weekend, my family and I arrived at our favorite trailhead, a local section of the Appalachian Trail, bags full of Scooby-Doo gummies, grapes, and leftover pizza. We couldn't wait to step into the spring sunshine and head up the mountain together. As I helped my 3-year-old out of the car, I saw a bold yellow splash of color covering the whole middle of the parking lot or the marking lot. I looked closer, then quickly ushered her and her older brother across the sidewalk, and I walked up the rocky steps leading to the trail, distracting them from the paint. A huge swastika filled the lot. This week, I've been thinking a lot about what we can do in our English classrooms to take a stand against hate, to teach our students about equity, to open up more dialogue, more understanding, more compassion, more empowerment, to inspire our students to use their voices to make a difference in the world. As you can hear, this parent is a teacher. As an assistant superintendent of equity, diversity, and inclusion at the South Bend School Corporation, and as a cultural critic and as a person who studied culture, class, and race, how do you respond to what the teacher and the parent, because she's a teacher and a parent, what she shared? How would you respond to that?
Well, I would respond, first of all, saying I applaud her for wanting to educate and to do something about what she sees that is not right in the world. Secondly, when I hear that, I'm thinking of 3 things. I'm thinking about the culture as a whole, that would, to me, would be a system. And then I think about the individual, and then I think about, I can't think of the middle piece I want to talk about there, but she wants to know what she can do. I would say in her home, she could certainly teach her children, ensure they become individuals who know how to navigate difference and ambiguity. And I believe people behave in those ways because they are just not, don't have the ability to move off of the sidewalk where they are to go down the street and see things in another vantage point. And so I think it would be critical for her to really broaden her children's mind, because we all are a part of this. We all breathe this smoke. We all breathe the same air. We all have the media that feeds us these concepts and these ideas that are not always necessarily true. So we have to work against that malware. Like if we're a computer, these things are just automatically downloaded in our mindset. But what she has to do is work against that and give her children some new ways of thinking and new ways of exploring and really building their resilience so that they don't default to just whatever someone presents in front of them. So to really have them to be critical thinkers. And as a school person, I would say first, I would have a conversation with my school principal and talk about how can we begin to build systems of inclusion in our and increase student voice in our school building. And one of the things that we've done here in South Bend School, we started to build people's capacity to have those conversations, because they're not easy and they can become very clumsy and for people. And that is facing history in ourselves, which provides the structure, the professional development, the content to help teachers present current events, things that relate to swastikas, how to respond, what do they think about it, increase the student's voice and efficacy. An agency. And so I would start with something that she can do in her own classroom, and then begin to build the grassroots and develop it and have support from her administrators.
I noticed as I started doing this work years ago that there was some confusion with the definition of equity and equality.
Yeah.
How do you distinguish between equity and equality in schools? And not just in schools, in the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And then are they the same thing? And then how do parents of the students that you engage, or the parents, differentiate between equity and equality, because as I listen to some of these school board meetings, as I listen to parents, as I listen to folks who hadn't had kids in the school, Dr. Sutton, since 1985, who have an opinion about education. How do you distinguish between the two of them? Are they the same? Are they one and the same?
Yeah. Well, a lot of times, just to break it down in small vocabulary words, we use all of this fancy terminology, but people know, number one, when they're not being treated, quote unquote, the same. And equality means that if you're going to receive that, I want it too. But when we're talking about equity, you will hear conversations like, well, what do you need? I need to make sure you have everything you need to be successful. You can't give everybody a bicycle because maybe someone, the same bicycle, maybe I'm in a wheelchair or something of that sort. So that's not going to give me what I need. So in small vocabulary words, equality, like my years ago, a second grade student went home and told his mom what he learned about Dr. King. And he said, she asked him, what did you learn today? He said, I learned that Dr. King wanted equal amounts of rice, not rights, but rice is what he heard as a kindergartner for everyone. And whereas, equity, let's give people what they need, because we all come from different walks of life. And we just need to change our mindset to say, hey, let's help you to be successful. And that's how I would define the two.
Yeah, and it's important, and you keep coming back to kids, and Dr. Sutton, kids grasp it much greater than we do. And teaching kids about equity in schools is not teaching them what to think. It's about giving them the tools and strategies and language an opportunity to practice how they think. I think that we're filling our kids' heads with stuff, but it's really about giving them those tools. How is your school district doing it different than what other districts you're noticing? Because you're like me, you travel a lot. Well, let's talk about before COVID. We travel all over having these conversations about equity. How is your school doing it different? But before that, how are you doing it different? Because again, the school is just a building. It's a framework. It's just a place. But people like you who are doing the work, that's what it's about. So as we talk about working with children, engaging kids, how are you doing it different? And how is the school district doing it different? And then what are some of the results that you are starting to see manifest?
So one of the ways, so our administration has been in for just going into 2 years, and we're digging in deep, taking a deep dive into, well, what does the data say? And we're taking that data and being very responsive to having those conversations with building leaders, with teachers. We're developing systems of accountability. We are bringing in what I think is critical is what's different is we're working alongside business, education, and community leaders. As you stated up front, we bring them together to build a connected culture because we are not separate entities. And so I find it to be very unique that we are building, as you said, student agency, so that they are resilient, they are part of their community, they have voice, and that they are able to engage with those around them. And it's like that old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. And it really does, because our school corporation is the South Bend Community School Corporation. And so when we work to support a child, a family, and businesses, and other agencies come together to support what those needs are, I think that makes it critically unique. And so when we think about some of the outcomes, well, I would say that right now, the outcomes, are a little more we need to be seen, because we have been during COVID for a while. But what our district has done is provided, I would say, equity in technology. We ensured that every student had a laptop. We closed the technology gap. We fed every family. We continue to feed them through the pandemic to ensure we make sure kids have reading materials and supports. We make sure also that we are visiting families during this time to check on their social emotional needs. And I think that has paid off significantly in helping students to be ready to come back to school and to be successful.
What has COVID-19 taught you about educational inequity or just inequity across the board? Because as we all approach, COVID, we're celebrating, I hate to say celebrating, almost like a year anniversary of last year, this time in March, school shut down. So what has COVID taught you about equity? And also, what has COVID taught you as an educator who's been in the business for 20 plus years? What are you learning about yourself during this time of the pandemic?
What I've learned about COVID-19 and equity is that schools and families and community work hand in hand. We need each other. We need to be there for our families and for our students, not just academically, but socially. It has taught us that, the kids really rely on us and we rely on them. I have just seen really the social divide and the connections that kids were begging to come back to school and to just be a part of that social system that a school community brings to them. And that's one thing that I have learned. We can never turn off. We impact the next generation. And we just need to be here for them. That just stands out more than anything. Academically, we know that kids are resilient. We are going to really work very hard to ensure the achievement opportunities remain, but still socially, this is their space and they need to be in it.
Well, we know that these are difficult times, and with difficult times come challenging conversations. And you alluded to it just a little bit. Peter Bromberg says, when we avoid difficult conversations, we trade short-term discomfort for long-term long-term dysfunction. So how does Dr. Sutton actually how do you approach those courageous conversations? How do you find the courage to have those courageous conversations when people are very sexist and racist and there's a lot of biases, there's a lot of microaggressions that are out there? How do you give me some of your specific strategy? Because there's some leaders across the country right now and parents who are like, how do you have the courage to have these conversations? Because a lot of times we do avoid difficult conversations. And as Peter says, we trade them for short-term discomfort. But then there's this long-term dysfunction that starts to manifest. Everybody's not excited about change. How are you mustering up the courage? And where do you find your courage to have the conversation? And what advice do you have for other people who are not courageous enough, who want to, but they're just afraid to have those conversations?
That's a great question. But I think it's as an interculturalist, because there's several hats that you can wear. You can enter the space as a critical race theorist or an interculturalist. And when I talk about the word intercultural, I mean, what happens when we all get in the same room and all of these different personalities and belief systems and things of that sort show up.
They show up in one place and they show, you said show up, they show out. Remember you was a kid, your mother said, you better stop showing out for your cousins. They show up and they show out.
They do. And that is where I think the skill of making sure everybody sees themselves as important and as on the 4 layers of diversity, so to speak. I think people need to see themselves because. So when I talk about the 4 layers of diversity, I'm talking about the personality. Then I'm talking about the things that you can see. Then I'm talking about the next layer, which would be a matter of life choices, and then the organizational dimensions. And so people really are want to see themselves as someone who's a part of this inclusion cycle or a part of this discussion. You can't just have a one-sided conversation that only talks about me, but what about them? So usually I take the approach of showing the expanded view of what diversity is. And sometimes I think it's just critical to have that conversation and asking people, may I be honest with you, or may I share with you my perspective? And then begin to engage in that conversation that, still honors the person. And also that I'm able to get my point across, and then see where we can go forward if there's a decision to be made. I think that becomes very, very important. But yeah, I think it's also important for people to have proximity to these issues related to equity, diversity, and inclusion, because if they don't have an understanding, nor do they need to, I think that really puts them at a disadvantage of being either a great leader or, parenting or what have you. The more you are able to navigate all of those types of conversation, the more you are going to be able to navigate in this world.
I like how you said your approach. Like, I'm going to share my thoughts and my opinions. Is that okay with you? You're checking in. Ruth King, in her book, Mindful Race, I'm not sure you're familiar with Ruth King's work. Yeah. She talks about asking consent. She says, when you're going to talk about race with individuals, you want to sort of ask them consent, because again, if they don't consent to the conversation, then you're having a conversation like, with no one. And then she also goes on to say the racism is a heart disease. I love this because I'd never heard this concept. She says, how we think and respond is at the core of racial suffering and racial healing. If we cannot think clearly and respond wisely, we will continue to damage the world's heart. I thought that was so poetic. And we're seeing a lot of damage because folks they don't want to be courageous. They're holding back. We want people to, I hate this word, say we want you to buy in, And my partner, Nicole Tucker Smith, she said, we don't need more buy-in. We need believe in. We need people to believe in this process.
Right.
What do you want people to believe about how your approach may be somewhat different or similar to other people's? What do you want them to believe and know about you, Dr. Sutton, that may be different from how other people approach this work? And then what do you know? What do you want, those babies that you're engaging and your team and the world that's looking, for women in particular, women of color, to stand up? And because you all have been doing this work for a long time. I meant to say happy Women's History Month because, this is your month. And if we were in a real equitable society, we wouldn't have to choose one month, Doc. You know what I mean?
Right.
But what do you want people to believe in about the process and your approach to the work of DEI?
Well, I want people to really see themselves as leading from the inside out. I want people to look at being connective leaders. And because we live in a world where inclusion is critical and connection is inevitable, and leaders who, and when I say leaders, anyone can be a leader. It doesn't have to be positional. Any person can be a leader, and leaders interested in understanding what it's all about. Leadership is always all about, it's well beyond management for short term. It's intended for every person in a complex world that we live in. And so the things that I particularly focus on, they're relational, they're direct and instrumental. And so how do we connect with others in times when there's such polarization, or as we say, the three pandemics, that's racism, COVID-19, and polarization. And so I think people need to be able to become global citizens and not be able to see themselves only in one facet. If I had to go to Guam, I need to be able to navigate and be successful in Guam and not become stymied in any one culture. And so as a connective leader, you have this intrinsic direct where you excel, you perform, you have this competitive side, and then there's this power, you take charge. But you can't only operate in that space. Sometimes you have to become more instrumental. You may have to be entrusting and where you are empowering other people. And when you asked earlier about the teacher, parent, one way that she can support others, she can support the work that someone else is doing, which empowers them, which is going to be, I think, just as important, because if it's important work, it needs to go forward. You know, you need to use your social networks. People have to be able to navigate outside of themselves, being more direct, being more instrumental. And then another instrumental piece is being able to personally persuade someone to do something that is critical. And then the third way I like to look at connective leadership is relational, meaning sometimes you can live vicariously through other people, and that's mentorship. We have lots of talents and lots of things to give that based on the life we've led. So how are we mentoring and building someone else forward? And then contributory is relational. And how are you helping? We don't always have to be up front. In fact, I like to be in the back, but sometimes I get put in the front. We need to be able to contribute to very important causes. And then the last one for the relational is collaborative. You join forces. So here, like Dr. Shields and Dr. Sutton collaborating, imagine the work that can be done. And so I think that is an intercultural view of how I think how I do the work. And that's, again, through connective leadership. We master our own tasks, we maximize interactions, and we contribute to other people's success.
Well, we know that one way that you're contributing to the success of leaders, you have created the Thought Leadership Conference. Talk to my listeners about the Thought Leadership Conference. Why did you start it? When is it? How can we get connected to it? And what do you expect people to walk away from this conference, learning, gaining from being a part of this particular summit?
Well, thanks for asking about the Thought Leadership Conference. There's a backstory to it, but I started the conference because I saw years of the work that I've done, especially as it relates to a community, because the school sits in the center of a community. And so I started to see the impact or the lack of collaboration between these cross sectors leaders and the impact it has on the community. And so I founded the Thought Leadership Conference 3 years ago, but it was a culmination of some other activities that were going on to bring leaders together to strategize on creating the infrastructure and systems needed to develop a culture of inclusion and belongings. And why another reason why is because leaders are facing these demographic shifts in the region and around the world, and employers we are finding are demanding college career-ready performers and community members. They insist on agile, innovative workplaces. So I said, today's thought leaders must join forces to attract and retain talent. They have to create these inclusive communities, and they have to improve everyone's economic development opportunities. That's why we have to be at the table, having the conversations together. And see, these shifts and these challenges are high stake matters. And the schoolhouse is a major economic driver in the community because it's really a strong indicator of where people choose to live, work, and play. And so the Thought Leadership Conference is the only conference that is bringing together these cross-sector leaders in the community to network, to discuss and strategize on issues of equity, diversity, and inclusion. And the conference provides a place for domestic, U.S. and global leaders of business, educational institution, and nonprofits to collaborate on the most pressing issues facing our organizations today. And
when is the summit? When is the conference?
The conference is on May the 20th and 21st. And we have a headline speaker, Tim Wise, who is a
you got some heavy hitters. I saw Tim. I saw my man Randy Pinkin, Randy is best friends with my buddy Jeff Johnson. Jeff Robinson, when we started our business. So we go way. I say BC before children. I always say before children. So you got Tim Wise, you got Dr. Pinkin. Who are some other people that are going to be there?
Yeah, some other people. One of the things that I'm really excited about is we have the deaf culture, and to talk about what diversity looks like for them. I have,
it's so interesting you say that. So I'm on the East Coast in Maryland. I'm right next to Gallaudet, and to talk about the world that we live in. I remember when I was teaching at Hopkins, I invited these students to have an exchange with us, with some students that I was working with. And they came, and typically I like to create an atmosphere and ambiance in my space. Typically I'll have some scents burning, some candles burning, and music playing. So I'm playing the music, I'm going somewhere. I'm playing the music and I'm wondering, like, man, why aren't they into the music? And I was like, they can't hear the music. Now there's some research around them feeling it through the floor and but I was like, but in my right-handed, male-dominated music listening to world, I didn't even think about that. And so I'm so glad that you are pulling that community in, because that's a community that I think is important. Talk to me, Dr. Sutton, about what's your why? Why is this work so important to you? And why should we care about the work of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility?
We should care.
And before you answer, I'm sorry, we're going to leave in the notes section, we'll leave all the information about the summit. Perfect. So if you want to register for the summit, we'll leave all of that in here so you can click on and you can get that information. But sorry, I just cut you off. But if you can answer that question, why is it important to you and why should we care?
Well, it's important to me because I just keep it simple. Nothing gets done without people. And this is the human side of business. This is the human side of organizations and the psychological aspect of the organization. And unless we begin to really tap into who people are, see them, respect them, create structures for that. Yes, we can pay them. Yes, they can do a role or a job. But if we really want to maintain a sense of wholeness and community and really get the best, dollar for your business, we have to create spaces where people are seen, they're welcome, they're respected for what they have to offer. I mean, I think this is where you even get discretionary supports from people. It's inevitable for us to connect with people in that way. We can't overlook it because it brings value to not only the person, but to our organizations, and people stay longer. People don't leave jobs. They leave, as Drucker says, bad bosses or bad culture. And culture, if it is not right, it will eat, as he says, strategy for lunch.
Well, you are on it. Dr. Tessa R. Sutton, it's been a pleasure hanging out with you today in the bomb shelter. I love the direction that you're going in. You all need to check out the summit, and we'll leave that in the notes section. But before you leave, part 2 of the show, it's called the Super Bomb Questions, and it's brought to you by Mountain Made. And this part is a little different. This gets a little more Nosy. We want to know a little more about you. We know that
Okay.
we know how dope you are. We read your stuff. We seen your videos. But we want to know a little bit more about you. So it's called the Super Bomb question. I'm going to ask you these questions. I need you to respond to them as quickly as possible. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So listeners, she did not get these questions ahead of time. So we're going to see where she goes. So here we go. What is your favorite word?
Ambiguity.
What's your favorite quote, scripture, Bible verse, or lyric to a song?
My favorite scripture is Proverbs 3:5. Trust in the Lord with all their heart and all their mind, and guiding our footsteps.
What's your superpower?
Joy.
What's your spirit animal? Never thought about that.
I just never have.
Okay. That's
probably an eagle, maybe.
What moves you to tears of joy?
Love.
What moves you to tears of sorrow?
Exclusion.
What do you wish you had more time to do?
Daydream.
What is the book or books you've given most as a gift, and why?
The book that I have given is interesting as a gift is an author named Michelle McKinney Hammond. And Michelle McKinney Hammond is a single woman who speaks to women's value and how to be full and whole in God by themselves before they take on any other relationships. And that is why I give that to women, because it has lots of truths and value and treasures in there for women.
What's your morning routine?
My morning routine is when I step out of bed, my right foot says faith and my left foot says grace.
What values do you live by every day?
Values that I live by every day is to show up and be who God created me to be. And
if you were in the Mrs. America talent competition, Dr. Tessa Sutton, what would your talent be?
a great speech.
Giving a great speech. Well, Dr. Tessa R. Sutton, it's been a pleasure hanging out with you today in the sound bombing community. It is a blessing and it's a joy for me to hang out with you and listen to the great things that you're doing, not only just in South Bend, but across the country. We wish you much success on the Thought Leadership Conference, and we will leave that information below. But thank you, and I wish you nothing but success and joy. Thanks for hanging out with me today.
It's been a pleasure, and this has been very exciting.
All right. I am grateful too, and I'm so grateful for my super duper producer, Nicole Klimpaka, Supremacy for our theme music, and all of you for listening. I cannot do this without you, but stop being stingy and share me with all of your friends, because we're on every platform. We're on every platform. If you want to know more about me personally, go to drdrlds.com and you can check out all the things that I'm doing. As I always believe that something wonderful is about to happen, but some people miss the message because they're too busy looking for the mess, but not you, because you've been listening to Sound Bombing. Peace.
The Super Bomb questions are brought to you by Mountain Made CBD. Mountain Made is changing the CBD game by offering a line of high-dose CBD tablets at an affordable price. Their products are THC-free and third-party tested for accuracy, cleanliness, and potency. Their products, which ship nationwide, include Build for CBD saturation, Boost for precision titration, and Recover for rest and rehab. With 9 years experience in hemp and fitness, Mountain Made's founders are focused on creating a quality product to help those who live an activated lifestyle. Check out mountainmade.life. Again, that's mountainmade.life to find out more about how their products can help you crush life. Remember, Their products ship nationwide. Go check out their website today and follow them on social media at Mountain Made. That's the @ MNTMADE. Our staff at Sound Bombing uses Build before a morning workout, which helps to push our bodies to a whole new level on a daily basis. Try Build, try Boost, try Recover. Our staff is using these products to enhance our active lifestyle naturally, and we are crushing life with Mountain Made CBD, and you can too. Start today by going to mountainmade.life and ordering Build, Boost, Recover, or the multitude of other products that they have which will enhance your lifestyle. I promise you, you won't regret it.